and welcome to our final episode of the Women's Policy Action Network's discussion series. Today, we will be discussing all things related to economically empowering women through inclusive finance, its benefits, its challenges, and any gaps that or anything we need to do to bridge any gaps in relation to it to economically empower women. I'm Yasmin Raji, your host for the day. Today, we are joined by Chiranthi Cooray. She was the previous Deputy General Manager for Sustainability and Corporate Communications at HNB. She was also the Director, HR and Organizational Transformation at the Security Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, and she's here to help us unpack this issue in greater detail. Chiranthi, thank you so much for accepting our invitation today to join us on this discussion. So let's dive straight into it. To kick things off, I think it's really important that we, define what financial inclusion is. To my understanding, financial inclusion refers to the access that individuals as well as businesses have to useful and affordable financial products and services. And this includes everything, right? From transactions, payments, savings, credit, and insurance. So could you tell us why is it so important that women, specifically women, have access to, or that they are, included financially in Sri Lanka, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Yasmin, and it's a pleasure to be here on this program today. To go straight into your question, actually, in 2019, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka surveyed 4,800 households, and they were very careful to include as many women enumerators as possible, and 56% of the survey sample were women. Why that was for a specific purpose. The survey was to publish the Financial Inclusion National Strategy for 2021 and 2024 for the forthcoming 3 years, right? Now, the survey was done in 2019. Even after the COVID new normal, the survey's findings are still very relevant. Why women? The focus on women is, if you look at Sri Lanka, 25% of Sri Lanka's households are woman-headed. This situation has got exacerbated because of the conflict in the past 3 decades in the country. So whether they are war widows or military widows or otherwise, 25% of Sri Lanka's households are women-headed households. So naturally, there is consumer buying power that is coming into women. So are women financially included in this process? Do they have access to finance? Are they financially literate? Are the options, all the available options available to them for access, for use, and for understanding becomes very critical in this whole economy as a whole.
Cool. So, can you tell us maybe some of the specific challenges that Sri Lankan women specifically face in accessing formal financial services, and how does this, affect their financial empowerment, especially in terms of, their ability to be entrepreneurs, as well as have access to other economic opportunities?
Right. So first, before I get on to that, what are the challenges for women? One thing that is very important is, if you look at the last couple of years, Sri Lanka's poverty index has doubled. As at about 2022, it ranks at 25%, whereas in 2019 it was 14%. Now, with that, an additional 2.5 million of the population had got added on to the poverty group, right? And in ADB report of 2015, a working paper which looked at other variables among financial inclusion as poverty and income inequality, it clearly states that financial inclusion significantly affects poverty alleviation. Now, when you look at then making finance accessible to women helps economic empowerment, helps these women to nurture the household, send their children to school, gain economic freedom, give a better bargaining power for them, whether as a consumer or as a producer or as a seller of a service or a good, right? This becomes important. Now, what are the challenges? Number one is lack of education and awareness and financial literacy. When I say financial literacy, I would also like to touch on digital financial literacy. Although we do have a good mobile penetration as a index
Coverage,
ratio
yeah.
coverage, usage of that to transact finances is very little. If you look at many Facebook groups, like various marketplace groups, Hela Ekamutuwa, Kudaha Sulu Parimana Velandunge Ekamutuwa, various collective groups of traders who trade using Facebook as a platform, 95% of them still go for cash on delivery. Now, even the central bank financial inclusion strategy document identifies that women prefer to seek informal sources for borrowing or financial transactions. So, one is this lack of education and then the familiarity. So, if I know you, I'll come and take some money from you. Or also another popular choice is pawning gold to get short-term loans. These are there, and lack of collateral. So land ownership rights, this leads to right of collateral for more long-term structured financing for a business. Everyday consumption loans, we call them consumption loans. You just pawn the jewelry or go and do a borrowing from a known person, family friend, or an unauthorized or unregulated money lender. Now, there are great perils on the other side that this come with. One is higher interest rates. These interest rates are quite extortionist. Actually, daily rates, weekly rates, when it compounds and gets added, it's very high. And women don't know this. Because there's easy access, no documents, and you can just get it and be done with it. And the end use of these funds, does it really go into a business or a long-term family, quality of standard of life improvement, like a child's education, or is it for consumption, or is the woman mainly being fronted by one else in the family to get this access? These are questions that need to be explored. So there's a lot of challenges, and number one is lack of awareness and maybe bargaining power in the decision making process.
All right. I mean, since you touched on like what makes them actually go for informal financial services, maybe can you also tell us from your experience what issues there are in relation to unregulated microfinance institutions and their impact on women, and has the government or even private institutions have they taken any steps to address these challenges right now?
If you look at the last 5 years, there's been a lot of actions taken, legal and policy level, to bring these money lending institutions, microfinancing or otherwise, into the mainstream. So, but still every day something mushrooms up. Even we get SMSs of social media pop-ups. Do you need a loan? Quick loan, no documents. It's very alluring, it's very enticing, and for somebody who is in a dire need for cash, they would think this is the way to go. Even online Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, various digital asset classes that have been promoted in the recent past. There are sad stories, actually. These can be used as case studies. People have gone and lost their entire savings, their cars, their houses, putting money behind what they thought was a cryptocurrency, but was actually a Ponzi scheme. So, unregulated institutions, persons, entities is being cracked down by the regulators now. But every day, using digital mediums, social media platforms, they keep popping up. So vigilance is important among the general public as well.
Yeah. I mean, you highlighted that the main reason for the reliance on informal financial services and also like unregulated microfinance options, it's because of a lack of financial literacy, right? You did say that it was because of a lack of of education on these things, what's available. So I mean, what kind of like could you maybe elaborate on the gaps that exist in the current financial literacy programs in Sri Lanka? Maybe what needs to get fixed here, really? Like, what is it that women really need to know? How can we make them, aware of how can we make them know these things? And yeah, so any practical steps and measures that can be taken to improve the existing financial literacy programs?
Sure, Yasmin. Actually, if you look at the last few years, banks, trade chambers, women's organizations, IT organizations, NGOs, they have all gone all over the country into the main districts, north, south, east, and west, and conducted financial literacy programs, not only for women, for the society at large, even at school level. Even in the country, there are 100 capital market clubs at school level. There are thrift societies, student saving societies, financial literacy programs at school level, university level, every level. What is then the lacuna? The lacuna is that the modules are not getting updated with the current trends. If you look at the national education curriculum, ICT, the curriculums have not been probably revised since about 2018. And since then, a lot of new digital progress has come into place, right? So, from that point of view, are the teachers skilled? Skilling of teachers, skilling of other education services providers, even the trade chambers, NGOs, are they addressing cybersecurity, personal data security? Because people who go and fall prey into these trade their data, their name, their NIC, their date of birth, their account numbers. They go and click a link and completely expose themselves and their bank accounts. So there's a lot of awareness in terms of digital literacy and digital financial literacy, as well as cybersecurity, data protection, data privacy, one's rights and entitlements. So as much as financial literacy programs have been done, quite a lot. And that's why you can see in the central bank report in financial inclusion that 88% of the surveyed population had a bank account. And they were aware of the savings instruments. However, they did not access that account to get a loan. But beyond that, the rates keep coming down and down. So digital financial awareness, data security, protecting oneself from scamsters becomes really important. Those are some of the bigger gaps which now need rapid addressing.
But do you think though that those issues really do matter to like people who live outside of Colombo? Like, I mean, like for women who maybe own MSMEs, like micro businesses, for example, like do you think that they think about all of those when they decide that they want to use financial services, or do you feel like it's something else that's sort of preventing them from accessing these kinds of instruments?
So one is the fear of unknown. The other is the lack of knowledge to prepare your own chart of accounts. So a lot of them just do cash sales and they don't keep proper accounts. So when that's one reason why they don't want to go to a bank. If you go to a bank, you have to have your income statements, your expenses, you have to have your books, which we find, having served in a couple of trade chambers and women's chamber of industry and commerce, we find that when even people apply for awards, they haven't got their accounts in order. So one is a fear, one is lack of knowledge, one is also people generally think, if I do this, I will have to pay tax. There seems to be a great fear of tax. Again, I think due to lack of awareness and understanding how tax can be beneficial to you. Because on the one side, you avoid putting your accounts in order because you worry about taxes. On the other side, you borrow at a higher cost, which is far much more in excess than what you would pay as taxes. So where is the balance? you need to show this side and the other side both, and explain to people, get into the financial mainstream. The more you stay out, the more you become vulnerable. And especially rural women or even rural entrepreneurs, whether they are men, women, or non-binary gender, anyone, they are the more vulnerable group. If you look at some of these recent cricket matches shown in Sri Lanka that were played, they had sponsored ads from various money lending operations and various cryptocurrency operations. Today, those people are being prosecuted by the regulator. So you can see, when you go and put advertisements in mainstream media, especially in big events, games, concerts, people think this is a respected entity.
Yeah.
I have no problem, I can trust them, because what they see, they believe. It's coming on national TV. So those people rurally out there are the most vulnerable, and they are the people who are being targeted. Western province, I think the awareness level is somewhat there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I also feel like, to some extent, like, I mean, in our everyday lives, you probably feel
Yes.
that there is a lot of women who understand that to some extent, but
And
outside.
that said, the moment you see a link to click, people go and click that.
That's the thing.
So
yeah.
social engineering, phishing attacks, there's a lot of education that goes parallel with financial literacy that needs to be quickly imparted to
So, like,
insulate them from these risks.
okay. I mean, just out of curiosity, like, how can it seems like a very like a huge task to almost go about this like the challenge of educating, right? The challenge of, like, busting myths, tackling misconceptions. Where do you think, like, we're going wrong, or where do we need to fix things? Who needs to take the step to sort of, like, fix these issues for women to actually be attracted to formal financial services, use formal instruments, even go into the part of fintech? Like, how can we even start to think about those steps?
So I'd like to look at 4 areas. One is legal and policy action. So the laws have to be tightened, and there needs to be stronger regulation, and then policy level, so that that covers at an umbrella level. Then we need to take education sector as a group, starting from like grade 5 curriculum right up to university. These need to be now rapidly brought into the main syllabuses and covered. Apart from that, media and entertainment play a very, very pivotal role. Talk shows, morning shows, evening shows, children's programs, cartoons, you name it, every medium can be used to impart this message. Right? So that advertisements, people relate to these well. Now there's a strong TikTok community in Sri Lanka, there's a strong YouTube community in Sri Lanka. People use mobile for social engagement, so use those. Use comedy, use theater, you use whatever it takes, and take the message across. Apart from that, trade chambers, private companies, NGOs, policy advocacy groups, all can get together and do awareness creation through panel discussions, forums, symposiums, discussions like what we are doing today. And then one other very catalytic group is our university students. The researchers they do for their degrees can have some of these new topics, because the more you do a graduate level, postgraduate level dissertation, and it is with one of these socio-economic problems, it gets published, it creates awareness, and then there's a dialogue around it. So research, more and more research, and more research publications, and creating awareness through structured research, through academic research, also plays an important role. Okay. These are some ways in which we can tackle this. It has to be multi-pronged.
I mean, I was just thinking, though, like, I mean, apart from, like, the very key stakeholders that you just outlined, in what you just said, we know that there is a disparity, right, in women's financial inclusion and then, men's financial inclusion. I know we're talking in binaries here, but because that is the, broader way in which we speak. I mean, is there something that, the men in our lives can actually do to financially empower women, to include women? Like, is there any steps that they can take? I mean, there's a lot that can change even within the homes as well, right? So, what do you think about that?
So if you look at it, if you look at the migrant worker community, slowly the predominantly women workers are now getting shifted. The ratio is shifting because there are some migrant workers who are, who are going for various construction services and all. So the demography is shifting a little. If you look at the plantation sector, the apparel sector, they are all again women. So empowering women and giving them co-ownership to decisions, financial decisions, becomes important. Now we can go and advocate or lobby for quotas, but if it's just a tick box exercise, it's not going to hold much, and see the intent go into reality and action. I think what is better is to create awareness of shared responsibility, dual income earners, and sharing even chores around the house, sharing financial decisions in the household together, rather than exploit women because they are vulnerable. I'm not saying that in every case that's the case, but largely you see even migrant worker women, their remittances, the end use of funds are sometimes misused.
Yeah.
It's wasted on alcohol or gambling, which is quite sad and should not happen. So if there is a better social equity in how decisions are made and the benefits of these economic enrichments are shared, I think it'll augur well for society. If you look at some of the developmental economic policies that have been practiced, putting even in microfinance, why these women are looked at is a woman would always look at nurturing the family unit and concentrate on educating children. So part of whatever earnings will go into that, which means there's a enhanced social quality standard at least at the next generation's level. So that is why this whole focus has happened for women, not because of anything else, because of their biological nurturer, caregiver kind of status. Not that women were preferentially treated otherwise, but it has repeatedly shown that when women are economically empowered, that the general quality and standard of the family improves. I did some work when I was in Santa Club 3 of Colombo about 15 years ago in an urban slum area, right in the outskirts of the Colombo city, just bordering outside of the city. So during the time former President Premadasa was the housing minister, these women had been trained on making asbestos roofing sheets. Now we don't talk of asbestos roofing sheets now because of the uh, content of carcinogenic or hazardous elements in them now, and now there's a whole story about not using them on roofs, but this is in the 70s. Now when I went and spoke to one of those team leaders in a urban slummy shanty household, both the children were university graduates. They have, and still to that date, that lady was like a leader, community leader, and she had empowered so many women to start up their own short eat selling business, home based sewing machine business. One lady had a demo batta, a small vehicle. So you can see how when given that empowerment, they do. And these are like now 50 years later, when you look back, the results are showing. So when you go and work at the ground level, at the grassroots level, you come across so many success stories like that, and that corroborates very well with the statistical empirical evidences we have. And then that actually is quite fulfilling to see when that happens. That's why I said, given the chance, a lot of these experiments and pilot projects end up being success stories.
All right. Thank you, Chiranthi. I learned a lot today, right? So I hope that our viewers also have learned, as much as I did. Thank you for the wonderful discussion. This marks the end of the last episode of our Women's Policy Action Network discussion series. So if you'd like to watch the previous episodes of our discussion series, please visit our Advocata Institute YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.